Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the first evening of our film discussions at Psyche. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'm Gayatri Manu, the Program Associate at Science Gallery, Bengaluru, and we are a public institution for research-based engagement, and we work at the interface of the natural and human sciences, engineering, and the arts. We primarily engage with young adults between the age group of 18 to 24 through various exhibition seasons and cultural programming. And Psyche is our third digital exhibition, and it explores the complexities of the human mind. As a part of this exhibition season, we have a bunch of programs, and I'm sure some of you might have attended a couple of them before. We have lectures, workshops, masterclasses, and film screenings. And as a part of our film screening series, we of course have Damascus Dreams, directed by Émilie Serri, who has joined us this evening, and Elaf Badr-Edin, who will be in conversation with her. Before I begin with the program, I would like to thank DBT Wellcome Trust India Alliance for supporting this program. And I would also like to encourage all of you who are present here to register for a couple of programs that are upcoming. First, we have Tracing the Trail from Memory to Neurons, which is a lecture in Kannada by neuroscientist Ravi Mudashetty, which will be happening tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. This event will also be officially launching the Kannada version of our exhibition website, so don't miss attending it. And following that, on Saturday at 3 p.m., we have a lecture by Jagadish Tirthahalli, who will be speaking about severe mental illnesses and what should one know. With that, let me not waste any more time and introduce you to our speakers for this evening. We have with us Émilie Serri, who has, of course, directed Damascus Dreams, which is being shown as a part of Psyche. She's a Montreal-based filmmaker, installation artist, and a curator. Her work has traveled in festivals internationally and in artist centers and galleries throughout Canada. In 2018, she won the Bronfman Award in Contemporary Art. Her first feature documentary, Damascus Dreams, premiered at the International Film Festival of Rotterdam in 2021 and won the prestigious International Critics Award at Festival du Nouveau Cinema. We also are so delighted to have with us Elaf Badr-Edin, who is a postdoctoral researcher at the Prison Narratives of Assad Syria Project ERC grant with his research, Musical Remains and Songs in Syrian Prisons and Exile at EUME in Berlin. He studied Arabic, English, and comparative literature in Damascus, Beirut, Paris, and Marburg. He was a postdoc researcher at Philipps University, Marburg, working on political songs in Syria. He has published many research papers in Arabic, English, and French. He published his book in Arabic, When They Cried Forever, the Language of Syrian Revolution, after receiving the Sadiq Jal Al-Azam Award by Etijehad. His upcoming book will be released soon on translating the language of the Syrian Revolution by Deguta. As you might understand from the credentials that I just shared, Elaf is uniquely positioned to engage with Emilie about her film, which is also, which deals with themes of memory, of exile, and of identity. With that, I would like to hand over to Emilie and Elaf to begin the discussion for this evening. Over to you both.
Thank you so much, Gayatri. Thank you, Emilie, for being here. Actually, it's an honor for me to be today, actually with different geographic locations from, I think you are located now, Emilie, in Canada, Europe to India, actually, which is like connecting all of the world today by this wonderful discussion, and also have the chance also to be your discussant today and moderating this panel for the film.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm really looking forward to exchanging with you.
Thank you so much, Emilie. So maybe before I start, I would maybe just like to speak a few sentences about the film. I mean, for the audience who is now watching us and our attendants, maybe, as we all know, I mean, in 2011, we had Syrian protests, and this was like the outburst that changed not only Syria, but also like many neighboring and frontier countries. Since that time until now, according to some studies here behind me now, there were more than 340 something documentary films and films talking about Syria and describing what happened in Syria. Today, actually, we are in an extraordinary film by Émilie Serri, a film that is dealing with many concepts, many terms, many ideas about the Syrian diaspora, if I can call it now, after 10 years or more than 10 years. A film that is talking about or treating in a very meticulous way about concepts with memory, exile, immigration, generations also, old one, new ones, but also at the same time about rooting and rerouting languages, cultures, and all of this, like with this, like wonderful, really, I enjoyed watching so much. Thank you, Emilie, for this film.
Thank you for watching it.
Okay, so maybe like to start the conversation for, I mean, as we all know, or as we have already like read the biography of Emilie and also watched from the film itself, Emilie herself, she is half Canadian, half Syrian, right, Emilie?
Not exactly. I mean, I am Canadian. I was born in Montreal and have lived in Montreal my whole life. So Montreal is in Quebec. My mother is from Belgium, actually, and my dad is from Syria.
Yeah. So maybe like the first thing, like regarding this like very interesting identity or cultural identity that you have, I mean, with like a Syrian father, maybe I would like ask you, as the film like treated or like worked a lot about the idea of memories and Syria and the past. Maybe what is Syria for you? Maybe this is like the first light question I would ask you, because I mean, we saw it in the film, but really I would like also like, I'm so excited to hear it also from you again.
Yeah, that's a big question. Start with the big guns. I guess I could tell you that what was Syria for me when I started this film, it was almost a mystery. It was a country I didn't know nothing about. I hadn't traveled to Syria, or I had been when I was a baby a couple times. And I didn't speak the language. I didn't speak Arabic at all. My father never taught us. And so I had the chance to go to Syria in 2010. So that was right before the war. And it was a true revelation for me, in the sense that I felt both alienated, like I didn't know anything about the place, and I felt out of place. I felt like a stranger in my own, in my own country. And then I felt like a tourist. And then I also felt this very strong feeling of proximity towards the people, the country. I met this family that was almost a family of strangers. And so it was a strange experience. So when I started thinking about the movie, Syria was something very abstract for me. It was this idea of a homeland, which is an idea that almost only exists in fantasy. It's not a geographical place. It's not concrete. It's something that exists in the mind. But then something happened when I started working on the movie, which is I started by asking questions to my dad and interviewing my dad, but he was like resistant, and somehow he had left Syria when he was 17. So for him, it was a whole other Syria that he knew, and he was an expat. He was not a refugee, which are very different experiences. And the war started, and then all of a sudden, Syria was in Canada because we had a huge immigration wave. And so I started meeting with Syrian people and asking them about their memories, asking them about their dreams. and something happened there, which is, I realized that, you know, Syria, I had the sense that it was disappearing in front of me during the war. I had the sense of powerlessness, like it was just, I couldn't do anything about it. But then I met the people and I realized Syria was always here, and it's through the people. So I guess now today, this is what I could say, is that that is what Syria is for me. It's people.
Yeah, it's the people, and also like we can see it nowadays. It's like with the big wave of that we had after 2011 of the displacement of Syrians. We can see now like many Syrian centers. I mean, like talking here about Berlin, for example, or Paris, or talking also about Canada. So we now, maybe after 2011 or 2011 and afterwards, we can have like many Syrias. I mean, not only one Syria, the geographic one that is destroyed, unfortunately. Treating like or talking about Syria again, I mean, what do you remember of Syria itself? I mean, you visited Syria for very few times. You told me that it is an imagined place for you. It's an imaginary for you. What do you remember of it? Or have you, and because I know that, or like I feel it from the film and also now from what you told me, that it is, you were like rooting yourself, not rooting yourself, maybe like looking for the origin, or like uprooting, or like inquiring or searching for the other part of you, or looking for the homeland, some part of you.
I remember what I photographed, because when I traveled there, I had my camera, 35mm, and those photos, some of them are in the film. And this is what I noticed in general, and this is what I thought about in this film, the link between how do you remember? And I remember what I photographed. So I remember the light. When I look at those photos of 2010, the light comes through, you know, in every picture. And it's something that is, I think, omnipresent. It's like this blinding light, and at the same time, it's very enveloping. It's hard to describe this Syrian lights, but this is what stayed with me.
Yeah. Again, regarding the memories and the dreams themselves, I mean, as we saw your dreams maybe and your memories of Syria through the photographs you took now, or you talked about now, do you have maybe like another personal question related to the film itself? Do you have any Damascene dreams rather than the ones you presented in the film?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I understand the question. If I have any other dreams, then...
Yeah, I mean, I just like took the film itself as like parts of your dreams, or like the dream of Damascus that you have dreamed of, or you have created through the memories you had, through the photos you took, and also through the film that we watched. So we are watching your dreams definitely, but also the dreams of the newcomers to Canada. Do you have, or do you imagine, I mean, or do you still have left, or do you have like still some remained dreams unexpressed in the film?
No, I think I don't have anything left, meaning that I really put everything into this film. It took almost 10 years to make. When I started thinking about it, it was right after my travel in 2010. So everything, I thought about this film, and I thought about Syria, Damascus, what it meant for me, what I remember throughout, you know, those 10, 12 years. So I'm out of dreams for now.
Thank you so much, Emilie. I mean, coming to the film and the period of the film, you said that it took you like more than 10 years, like doing it or fabricating it. Maybe I would like maybe go directly to the film itself now and just like discover with you more dimensions. How did you come with the idea, and how much hours have you recorded? Now we have 83 minutes. I think this is 83, right? 87, I think. I forgot how many minutes exactly.
Yeah.
But definitely this is, I wouldn't say hundreds, but I don't know. You will tell us about the numbers of hours it took you to see, or to give us like this, the best or the bestest of the best of what you've recorded or filmed in the last 10, 11 years?
Yeah, it was way too many hours of film. The editing process took a really long time, but I had this wonderful editor, Omar Elami, who is also a friend, and we worked for many years to edit this film. There were a lot of ideas, and if you saw the film, you know that it's more of a collage, and there is a lot of different types of images and ideas in the film. So it took a very long time. And well, how it came about was, again, it was when I traveled to Syria, I think everything changed from there. Because when I came back, a few months after I came back from Damascus, my grandmother died. And at the same time, it was the beginning of the Syrian revolution. Right, so there was this connection between a very personal event and something that was collective and public, that were happening at the same time for me. And so this is where I got the idea of intertwining my own personal family story with a sort of collective memory, if you will.
Nice, that's so nice. It was like definitely like very hard editing and also collecting which scenes you wanted us to see at the end. But yeah, maybe like I have like also like about making how this film was made. I mean, like a question about or regarding the actors and the actresses, the interviewees also at the same time. I mean, we know how it is difficult also like to reach, you know, like refugees, if we can call them refugees, or newcomers, like not feeling safe with the new country or the new homeland they chose for themselves. I don't know also if they were able to choose to go to Canada or any other European countries or any other countries. Maybe like, you know, those are like some of the challenges, like in order to get closer to the people to act inside your film. What did you do? How, I mean, maybe you can tell me a little bit about those challenges, because I think for me as a researcher all the time, I'm researching on Syria. This is like from the biggest challenges I have. How can I give like a trust zone, safety zone for my interviewees themselves, but at the same time, how to inform them about like the importance of my research. I mean, in your case, you know, there is a film, I wouldn't say that is easy, but that is, you know, practical to see the result at the end. But with my case, it's about books that no one reads, unfortunately, in academia.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It was a very difficult thing to do, to approach people that had been through a tremendous amount of trauma, and people who, of course, yeah, my father is Syrian. I am Syrian because my father is Syrian, I guess, but I also don't speak the language at all. So I felt really, it was strange for me to ask people who had just, you know, sometimes only spoke Arabic, to find a way to approach these people and explain my film, which is kind of hard to explain too. What I wanted to do was, I wanted to interview them, but I also, as you said, I wanted them to be actors, not be only, you know, passive, but be very active in the film. So I have no credit, because honestly, the person who really made that possible is Lana, who is a young Syrian refugee. Well, now she's been here for a while, but when we met her, she had just arrived, and she was from Damascus, and she was interested in helping us making this film happen. And so it's really through her, and she really explained the project to the people that we met. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. You know, people have very different expectations too of what the film would be. But I think one of the main questions for the newcomers or the refugees was, is this film going to be directly political? And can we actually participate, and would that be safe? And that is something that I didn't realize would be an issue. You know, very naively, I guess, I didn't think about the fact that people might not be free to express themselves.
Yeah,
so that was
yeah.
challenges. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And regarding, I mean, you mentioned now like a very important concept about like trauma and traumatized people maybe at the same time. I mean, how did you deal with this? Were you like able to, yeah, I mean, because when I watched the film, I was like one of the former prisoners, I mean, was talking about his experience and like, you know, he didn't want, I think it was a he, you know, to remember what happened because it was like a big kingdom of silence. I mean, for your psychological part also as a filmmaker, also listening to all of those narratives, I mean, was there like any psychological support for yourself and also for the interviewees or for the actors themselves and actresses?
Yeah, it was a hard process because again, I was trying to remember, and I realized when I interviewed the people, the refugees, that some of them really wanted to forget and needed to forget in order to survive. So we were going in different ways completely. So sometimes the meeting, it's like it wasn't happening. But I think I found a way. Well, first of all, I didn't want to talk directly about the war. This wasn't directly my interest. You know, it wasn't a film about the war. It was a film about memory and the way people remember, the way Syria will be remembered. And so we talked about dreams also as a way to escape this form of control and this form of trauma. So we, it was just a way of addressing the subject a bit differently. It was about finding a way to speak about Syria without, you know, directly speaking about their recent trauma.
And really, you did so well, actually, especially like, I mean, for my remarks, actually, you know, you filmed Syria in a different form. I mean, according to my remark, I'm not an expert in media studies, but according to my observation, I mean, we can say that in the last 10 years, there is an industry for Syrian films. And this industry was focusing all the time, I mean, in all of the documentaries, drama films, all of the films that they were like, most of them, let's say that they were like treating with the Syria as a topic, all the time to put Syria and Syrians in a binary. Heroes, victims, black and white. And this is the thing that you didn't do actually. And really, I was so happy, you know, like since like the first minute I started it, I was like looking for, okay, we don't have heroes here in this film. We don't have victims in this film. You know, I was waiting, you know, for all of those like, you know, already shaped realities that usually like we see in films of Syria. What did you do? I mean, to avoid this thing? We can see, yeah, really, this is like so nice, you know, method of filming it or doing it.
Yeah, I don't know if I can answer this question. I don't know what I did. You probably know more than I do. I do know that what I was interested in was not the war. I was not able to. I think those films are also important. You know, the films that talked about what happened in Syria and the revolution. Those films that documented the violence and are important, but it's not the film that I was interested in, right, making. For me, it was first of all, it was personal. It was about connecting with my dad, with our own common family history. And then it was about connecting with the people, the Syrian people, because I realized that I would never have a real idea of what Syria means to me without those two poles, right? Without my own personal story through my dad, and then, you know, something of a larger collective memory that only the Syrian people who could, you know, give me.
Yeah, I can see, I mean, how it is like this. Maybe I will just like move maybe more deeper into the film itself now and like talk about like experiences. How much is it important to link between the experiences of different generations, experiences chronologically in exile with the past, and the present to talk about and understand the current Syrian revolution war since the last 10 years or the last years. And maybe this is like also like part of the question, or maybe let's like stop here. I mean, how it is important, because you like in the film, like you focused a lot about the experiences of the old generation, the memories of the old generation represented by your dad and the new one. How this is important, I mean, to reflect or like to give a conclusion about like the current situation of Syrian exile and Syrian crisis itself.
Yeah, these were questions that I had myself when I started working on this project. Was how will I be translating my own experience of Syria if I don't know nothing about it? How you know, when I have children, how will I communicate what Syria meant to me if I don't know anything about it? And so I connected a lot with the younger generation of refugee women, you know, and there is this dance scene in the film where we dance together and we share the space. And so it was important for me to create connections with this generation, which I realize in some way have a similar experience than I have. Of course, they knew Syria, they left Syria, they came here. They have probably these memories of war mostly, which I don't. But in some way, when they have children, they will have probably the same problem. How do you remember a homeland you have not known, you have not lived in? But I realized for me, it was a lot about loss. When I started this film, it was all about loss. I felt like I was losing something. And then I realized that it was more about transformation. So it's not that I'm losing exactly, it's that things transform. So that's a way that I worked, for example, sound and music into the film. There is this old song in the film that we hear at first, this old classic, and I just took the voices and transformed them into another piece of music. And I thought, oh, well, this is kind of what the process of this film is. You take something and you remake it into something else.
Yeah, talking about like remaking and also like scene making also, like one of the really, I mean, very nice scenes I saw was that the snowy feast, like when we have like a big table with Syrian food and it snows over them. At the same time, like we see like a kid playing with his ball, I mean, while with very like harsh winter conditions, and like also at the same time like an abandoned boat. What symbolism you have, I mean, regarding all of those, like, you know, scenes? I mean, it's is it like, maybe like for me, like I interpreted it like as the new homeland? Is it like gloomy like this, sad like this? Or is it like a normal start for anyone, even like normal people when they travel to another country, you know, they have like a cold start, or like, let's say not springtime, in winter time?
Yeah, this is I think all the interpretations are valid, right? I probably have my own ideas of how I made this scene, but I think it's more interesting to hear how people, you know, interpret those scenes than my own. So anything could be valid. I could tell you maybe the way that I thought about it was those scenes, they are more of those mise en scène, you know, they were created after I talked with the Syrian people, after the interviews. And so I was asking them about their experience of arriving here. A lot of people talked about the snow. It was something that, an image that was really striking to most people was when they arrived and when they landed in Canada, it was all white. It was only snow. It was this big empty space. And so that, I remember that from the interviews, and I thought about a scene that would express this feeling of emptiness, maybe, and isolation, but also something that is very beautiful, and a space where you can remember, because there's nothing. I also, you talked about the food, and I read a lot about refugee camps and how it was there, and a lot of the images that came in the film were, yeah, from either the interviews or things I read, and I just put together, I guess, in something that made sense to me. But it's interesting to hear how people think about them.
Yeah. Also, like talking about like symbolism or connecting symbolism and the techniques, he used like many innovative techniques in the film. For example, like what really let's say that struck me like positively, actually, you know, like when I was like listening or like watching like some of the actresses or actors, you know, they were like speaking, or what I called it like the silent speaking scenes. When they speak and they don't speak, which is like, you know, very similar to the dream or like to a memory that you don't even like sometimes, you know, like I just like went back a few seconds to see, have I seen it well, or was it like, you know, there's like mistake of my eyes. Really, I mean, and maybe like you can tell us like how you came with this idea and the symbolism, all of this, because it's, you know, in dreams, really, we don't see so well. And like we fill in the gaps from ourselves. And here, like I found out that I was filling the gaps by my eyes, not by my ears, which is like really, I mean, like very innovative technique, like to talk or to present or to speak up also at the same time.
I think you said the word. It's this idea of the gap, this idea of this décalage between you know, something that we're living and something that we're remembering. And so this is what I wanted to, you know, render visible in the film, was this, all this loss that happens right in between the moments where you think and you speak. And I think putting the accent also on those silences, those moments where you reflect, you could see a lot of the times that I was, you know, I was asking these big questions and they were trying to remember. And I like the idea of watching them remember. And so this is the way we found with the editor to express that idea. And also to focus maybe on the silences more than on what was being said, because I think a lot of the film is in what is not being said rather than what is actually being said on camera.
Yeah, and this is also, maybe if I can add, like this is seen with the performance that we see it. I mean, especially with I think it was like 4 movements, and one of them like goes to the neck, and then like speaking and not speaking at the same time. Can you tell me more about it? The performance with the few girls, with few women, 4 or 5 women.
Oh yeah, this was a scene that I am very attached to, because I spent a lot of times with those women, and we rehearsed this dance choreography, and we spoke about, you know, what Syria meant to them, what it meant to me. It was my first time also meeting other Syrian women in Montreal. I didn't have really any friends from Syria, so we talked a lot about resistance, this idea of resisting death, resisting trauma, and just this idea of sharing a space together and performing, and including myself in this performance, which was also the first time that, you know, I am on camera. I am not watching them, they're watching me. And so I like this idea of inversing the gaze and connecting in a different way.
And be active in the film itself, also from like a maker into like an actor also at the same time, in the circle itself.
Right. I mean, I was asking the Syrian people to act in my film, and so I felt that it was only fair to do the same.
That's so nice. Regarding also like maybe like one of the challenges you spoke about, that you didn't want to talk about politics, or you didn't want to talk about war or about like the protests themselves, but at the same time you give space for all of the people to say whatever they want. I mean, like we can see like, you know, like some people like talked about their traumas, Some people talk only about their happy memories or bad memories, or others, they don't want to dream or to think about what happened in the past. I mean, how did you like deal with this idea? Because, you know, like some people, they still have people inside in Syria and they have families. Weren't they afraid of the safety of others? I mean, some people, they have nothing left. I mean, like when you saw like your father, or you say that when I want when I pass away one day, I don't want to be buried in Syria. I want to be buried here, because here I have more people to visit me. But there are still people there, you know, who still have a lot of people in Syria or in Damascus. I mean, how this wasn't like a conflict also at the same time? How did you treat it in your film? Giving spaces, but at the same time protecting the interviewees or the actors and actresses.
Yeah, it was a very delicate balance, and we had a lot of discussions about, you know, the political direction of the film. I mean, I had my own political ideas. It's not that I don't have any. It's just that, yeah, I realized that people could be in danger just for speaking out. And so I had to respect, I mean, most people really would not have participated in the film if I had said that, yes, it was political. For me, the personal is political. This idea of, you know, the feminism is in the film, and I think it's not an apolitical film, but I realized that, you know, in order to talk about it in a very indirect way, because people were threatened with their lives, and like you said, a lot of them still have hopes of returning to Syria, still have family there, family that could be persecuted for speaking out. But then again, yeah, some people didn't have anything to lose, would never come back, and were very free in the way that they could express themselves. And so I let them do that too. You know, it was basically really up to the people to choose what they wanted to express or not. Yeah. And I think we could express a lot again with the silence and with the without expressing it directly.
Definitely. I mean, at the end, everything is political. I mean, and yeah, and as we say that everything is political and nothing is political, but everything is political at the end, and no matter what you do, it is political. Maybe I would like just to ask about like a concept about what if in the future. I mean, you know, like all of the film was about now, about the past and now, maybe like a little bit of the future. But the question that came to my mind all the time, you know, like what if Assad leaves Syria? What if conditions would be better in Syria? What if all of the trauma, persecution, destruction, you know, I mean, according to like many historical events, revolutions, you know, political events happen in the history, you know, no country stays destroyed, you know, there would be like hope at the end. Would you think that if we do the same film again in 10 years from now or 15 years, we would have different answers? I mean, regarding returning home, or regarding also, like, you know, when we talk about 10 years from now, we're talking about like 10, which means like a whole generation now born in exile. Do you think that we would have like a new conception, new concepts about the homeland itself as a concept?
I don't think it would be possible to make the same film again in 10 years because, as you know, the film is set in such a very specific context, which is you know, it is not about the war, but it's set during the war. So it would not have happened any other way. That being said, I guess there is this question that I ask, you know, in the film, how do you dream Syria in 200 years? You know, how do you see Syria in the future, and would you ever go back? And there are some very interesting answers in the film, and some very depressing one as well. Like one of the boys in the film just answers, I see it as the desert, you know, like I think he's 15 years old, and he's already, you know, for him, there's nothing left in Syria and probably will never go back. So I don't know, we can always dream. We can always dream that the situation will change. Unfortunately, nothing has changed since the beginning of the war. We have lost a lot of lives and people fought hard, but unfortunately, you know, things have remained pretty much politically the same in Syria. But we can always hope.
Yeah, let's hope and let's dream. I mean, this is like one of the dreams maybe we will have, or like this is like the space that is left for us. I mean, to dream like maybe in a better Syria, and maybe a return. I mean, I'm looking at the time now. I think we have finished the 45 minutes mostly. Yeah, I don't know, Emilie. I mean, maybe I will give you like a few minutes also if you want to add something.
Yeah, well, I wanted to return the question to you because you are Syrian. So what is your hope and what are your hopes and dreams for Syria in the future?
Oh, I prepared for everything, but not to answer this question. Yeah, I mean,
I'm putting you on the spot.
Sorry, I cannot hear you. So I don't know if it's only me or
no, I think Emilie's internet may be dropping off a little bit. Emilie, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm sorry, my internet connection is not, well, it was fine for the whole 45 minutes, I guess.
Yeah, but I didn't hear your reaction to what I said, sorry. If I need to answer, I didn't hear you what you said.
Oh, I think Emilie might be experiencing a lag. Emilie, can you hear us? I don't know if you can.
I can hear you fine. I don't know if you can hear me. I don't know if I had time to. Yeah, I asked the question to laugh. I don't know if we had time to.
Yeah, I mean, my dream, maybe this was your question about my dream about Syria, right? Or the dreams for the future. This is what was your question. Yeah, maybe I mean, I'm very optimistic, actually. I'm optimistic with all of the diasporic experiences for all nations. And I think this is like a good opportunity for all Syrians to learn, to build maybe, you know, like a new coming Syria, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I have no idea. I'm not a political scientist to say when the war would end in Syria. But definitely, I would say that one day, I hope Syrians would have the right or the opportunity voluntarily to go back to their country without persecution, without corruption, without authoritarianism. So they can share what they learned in their exile, culturally, scientifically, and in all of the fields of life. I don't know if you've heard me, Emilie.
I did. Thank you for answering.
And me, I would be the first one to come back, actually. Inshallah.
Really? You said you would be the first one to come back?
Yeah.
I hope you have the opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elaf and Emilie, for that really engaging and interesting conversation that both of you had around the film. Unfortunately, Gayatri is experiencing some internet issues, so I will just be sort of, moderating the few minutes that we have left for question and answers. And just as an introduction, I'm Vasudha, and I'm one of the program associates at SGB. But Perhaps if people want to put their questions in the Q&A box, we'll be able to take them, but maybe I can just get the ball rolling and ask you, Emilie, a few questions that we had while we were watching the film. One of them being, you can see that in the film there is that interviewees have sort of a difficulty in remembering, difficult memories from their time spent in Syria. But of course, it's also necessary to sort of document these memories to have them as resources to fall back upon when you look at lived experience in Syria. So how did you balance this sort of tension? I know you spoke about like how it was really difficult for the interviewees to, you had to tell them that it's not political. But how was this balance between like them recalling these memories and then needing to also document it?
Well, it was a difficult balance. I'm not going to lie. I had a lot of times where I was discouraged because I had all of those unanswered questions. And I was really hoping to get as much, it was almost for me, it was about this idea of collecting memories, and sometimes you forget that there are actual people with experiences behind those memories, it's not something you can just take and appropriate. So I had to check myself and I had to be patient and I had to listen, I guess. And yeah, I did discover along the way that it's not always about remembering. Like I said, sometimes it's almost as important to forget. And forgetting is actually essential to remember, right? Even in the way our brains function and during REM sleep, we actually need to forget a whole lot to be able to make new memories. So that was something that I understood further throughout the film.
Yeah. And I mean, since we're on the topic of like the people you interviewed, what do you think they brought to your film that might have been missed otherwise?
Everything in a way, because the film that I made is only this film because of the people, right, who participated. Yeah. It would have been a whole other film if it had just been a conversation between me and my dad. Because I said he is also an expat. He chose to leave. He left when he was 17. He left to Syria. That was in the 50s. So with no memories of the war, only beautiful and good memories. And so the film is what it is because of the people I interviewed. And yeah, when I answered Elaf's first question about what is Syria, it's the people. It's really what I got out of them. It's like a sense of home, what I was looking for, basically.
That's really beautiful. And I was just wondering, Elaf, if you also had sort of thoughts on what were your thoughts when you were watching the film, because you have sort of, researched and worked on Syria. And of course you are from Syria. I wonder if watching the film changed any way of your thinking or like broadened any part of, what your thoughts on your work or lived experience are?
Yeah, actually, I mean, if you maybe extended description for the film itself, really, I mean, it is fascinating, but also at the same time, it is sad. I mean, it is really sad. I mean, all the time. And maybe here, I mean, as long as I'm working now on diaspora and cultural practices in diaspora, maybe I can cite the Indian scholar Vijay Mishra, I mean, talking about diaspora, saying that all diasporas are sad. I mean, they are unhappy. I mean, how can we imagine that there is a diaspora that is happy? Like all the time dreaming of a golden, wonderful, very positive homeland that doesn't exist anymore. So my feelings were all the time, feeling like this gloominess, the sadness, about losing a home. I mean, losing like, a homeland, losing a place that I used to be comfy before, which doesn't mean that I'm not comfy now in my new Germany life or France or whatever, it is also, but you think all the time you were forced to leave. Maybe this is like the difference between the experience of Emilie's father, who like by himself, he left by himself, right? I mean, no one forced him to leave. I mean, and this like big wave of people who were like displaced, they were displaced, they were forced to leave their homes, their memories, their dreams. And here it comes, the importance of the film itself. And I can also like categorize it also from other perspectives about archival document itself. I mean, this is why I asked a question about 10 years from now, despite it is made only for a specific time. I mean, it has its own context now in 2022, but it is a historical document for the future about like people, what they have experienced. So there is this archival practice in itself. I hope I answered some dimensions of your question.
Yes, definitely. I think we are running a little out of time, but if I may, I will just ask one last question. Since we're counting down the minutes to when the program ends, Emilie, I was just wondering, what is the significance of the countdown in the film? Like how the different sections of the film begin with 1, 2, and then all the way up till 10.
What do you think it is? How did you perceive this countdown? I mean, I don't, again, I don't particularly like to explain, because I think it's really nice to interpret it as you feel it. I mean, I had a lot of different people coming up to me and explaining their own version of the countdown. For me, it was a structural thing. It was about dividing the film with a sense of time, and also it was about my father basically teaching me how to count in Arabic. So this idea of transmission was there throughout the whole film. And at the end, when this is one of the first things you do when you learn a new language, you learn to count in this language.
Yeah.
It's about connecting with my dad and repeating after him, and
This really came to my mind actually, because when you learn like a foreign language, the first thing, or from the first things you start to know, is counting to 10. But while watching the film, when we've reached number 7, I've been thinking about the gates of Damascus actually, and I was thinking, this was. But then when they were like more than 7, I said, no, this interpretation is not possible anymore.
Yeah, it was definitely something I thought about too, the 7 gates. And this idea of the gate was present in the whole film. When we dance, you actually see one of the gates. Yeah, you probably saw that. But yeah, it was, it's interesting to hear how people interpret those different scenes.
Yeah, do you have a favorite interpretation that someone has told you? Oh, Emilie, could you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, you froze, and I think I think connection is bad, but I didn't hear the last thing you said.
I was just asking, is there a favorite interpretation that someone has come and told you about, like a favorite interpretation that you've come across?
Not that I can recall now, but it's because oftentimes people are looking for answers, they don't trust their own interpretations. But it's something that that's why I asked you how you felt the countdown, what it meant for you. But
yeah. I think we are almost out of time. So I think we can begin wrapping up. Thank you everyone for joining us. And like Emilie said, please feel free to, watch the films that are in our theater section, specifically Damascus Dreams, which you can view currently on our theater page, the link to which you'll find in the chat. and do interpret it in ways that you feel make sense to you. And share your feedback with us on the film discussion, and Psyche in general with the feedback form that you'll also find in the chat. And if you miss parts of this discussion, all of our programs are live streamed and uploaded on YouTube, so you'll be able to find those on our YouTube channel as well. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell you that we have a lineup of Kannada lectures from tomorrow, so do consider signing up for those, and also consider signing up for Professor Upinder Bhalla's lecture titled Memories at the End of the Rainbow, that also talks about memory, remembering, perhaps even forgetting in a slightly different context. And thank you so much once again, Emilie and Ella, for spending this hour with us, and for all of your insightful conversations that I'm sure all of us have taken back, and there's a lot to think about from whatever you both have shared. So thank you so much again for your engaged conversations and insights. And
thank you. Thank you
thank
so
you,
much,
everyone.
Thank you so much for having us here and enjoying all of this nice discussion.
Thank you so much. And yeah, please do consider, engaging with Psyche as we go along. It's open till 15th May. Okay, thanks everyone. Take care.